Hey there, men. Welcome back to another episode of the Wolf and Iron Podcast. You're tuning in to a Truck Talk Thursday episode. I'm Mike Yarbrough. I'm your host here, and I'm also the guy driving the truck and talking to you guys. Hey, listen, if you're tuning in for the first time, I want to say welcome to you. Wolf and Iron is all about helping men heed the high call that's on our lives. I believe that God puts a call on the heart of men, and that sometimes we kind of hear it in our 20s maybe. But I think it gets stronger as we get older, 30s and 40s. There's something that happens in the mind and the heart of a man where we begin to see ourselves outside of ourselves and part of a bigger picture. We move away a little bit further away from selfishness, hopefully, and we begin to see that we are interconnected with our fellow man, that there's a bigger game at play here, and that the decisions that we make, we begin to see the consequences of those decisions. Sometimes those decisions mean we're not where we want to be in life. Sometimes it means that our marriage isn't working out, or maybe your marriage didn't work out the way you wanted it to. Now you're on the second marriage, or you're trying to figure out how to raise your kids to be men, to be women in a culture that says you can be whatever you want to be, even though it's physically impossible, biologically impossible. Well, that's what we're all about, guys. I want to encourage you to grow above whatever the status quo for manhood is out there, and to heed the high call in your life. And so I think this is a good place to do it. There's another great opportunity for you, and that's in our Wolf and Iron community. We've got a great group of high caliber men. It's free for you guys. You can head over to wolfandiron.com/the group. I know you're probably listening to this on the road, or you're going for a run or something like that. If you're not a member of our Facebook group, make sure you do this when you get back to a place where you can stop and just request membership. wolfandiron.com/the group. They'll slingshot you over to our Facebook page, our Facebook group page, and you can request membership there. Hopefully we'll let you in if you answer the questions and all that kind of stuff. So one of the things that I found is that the guys who are part of our Facebook group actually, kind of a mixed bag of men in terms of faith, not faith, different phases of their faith, different types of faith. I would say that if you were to do just a very, very high level poll of the guys there, you'd probably find it to be something like 80 to 85%, maybe even higher than that, of Christian believers. Now, of course, when you get into the nitty gritty there and you ask, what particular denomination are you part of, and then you begin to ask people what they believe theologically, you're going to get all kinds of things, as you would expect with a group of, almost 3,000 guys out there. But then I also noticed that there's a good number of guys who are actually, practicing Onanism, part of what they call the old religion, the Norse religion, what most of us on the Christian side, and I think most people in society today would consider mythology. I actually find it very interesting, and I'd love to have a conversation with you guys on this at some point. Partly to try to figure it out so I can convert you back over to Christianity or get you into the Christian circle, sure. But also because I just find it interesting that of all the things out there that you could choose to do, why Norse religion, why Onanism, those kinds of things. But anyhow, I want to speak specifically in this episode to the guys that are leaving Christianity. I imagine this is happening in droves, not just from the Wolf and Iron listeners, but just all over the place. We hear about it. People kind of grow up in the church. They head off to college. They say, no, thank you. I don't want to have anything to do with organized religion. But they still kind of believe they're sort of into the agnosticism realm. They believe that there's something out there, or there could be. They just don't know how to describe it. And then eventually they go atheism, where they go to something else. And I want to challenge you guys. If that's where you are, if you've been questioning your faith, you've been struggling with your faith, let me just tell you one thing. I've been there. So a little bit of my background. I grew up Baptist, Southern Baptist. I saw a lot of hypocrisy growing up. Even at an early age, I recognized that. And it was a big turnoff as a kid. Now, I don't think even as a kid I was never a legalistic type of person. And I didn't have a hard time believing in God. It just sort of came naturally to me. It made sense to me. It still does to some degree. I'll talk about that in a second. But even as a kid, when I saw people professing one thing on Sunday morning and then living their life a different way, it wasn't just confusing or, well, maybe that's okay. I thought, you know what, that's not okay. That's not good. That's not how it's supposed to be. So by the time I got to be a teenager, I was like, look, who knows what's right? And, sure, there's probably a God out there, but who really knows how this whole thing works? Who really knows what religion is right? How could one even ever be sure? There's too many religions out there. You can never study them all. You can never figure them all out. And it was at the time, it made sense to me, right? Looking back on it, I see it now as kind of a convenient out because I really wanted to break ties with the structure and the do's and the don't do's of Christianity. I remember being in, I guess we'd have like these Wednesday night kids kind of worship services where we'd all get together and eat pizza, youth group type stuff, play basketball, and at the end of the night, I guess in order to kind of like make you pay for your pizza or make it worth their while, I don't know how it worked, but the church would have a speaker get up, somebody would get up and kind of give a little message for the kids, right? And I remember them asking, it seemed like they did this every time. They would say, who here is ready to live your life for Jesus? And everybody around me, raising their hand, they're screaming, yeah, I do, I want to. Who wants to give their life to the Lord? Oh, I do, And I'm sitting there thinking, man, I don't want to do that. I'm like 13, 14 years old. I want to party. I want to meet girls. I want to go live a little bit. I want to make some mistakes. I want to make some bad decisions. And then, maybe Jesus thing will come along down the road. Now, I got saved when I was 7. So for me, this was kind of like I'm kind of bucking against Christianity. And I really didn't understand it very well at the time. And I certainly didn't have the cojones to tell anybody this, right? I don't know if anybody would have been able to answer my objections anyhow. But I found it convenient to say, I've got some questions that I don't really know how to answer, and nobody around me seems to know how to answer them. So I'm out, Yeah, but you go do your Christianity thing. I'm just going to kind of believe in a God of some kind, but I'm not going to get real firm on what that looks like. And, I know a lot of guys, maybe that's where you are. You're kind of coming from a place of, I got a lot of questions. Nobody has answers. I'm seeing a lot of hypocrisy. There's other religions that have different views on different things. And you tend to believe what many of us get taught, by the media, I guess, and the uninformed out there. You tend to kind of gravitate towards a belief that religion is just like this big pot of soup that many cultures can dip their ladle in and take some from. And, the truth is in there somewhere, but your culture gets a little bit of it and it says, oh, I like it because it's spicy. And my culture gets some of it and says, oh, I like it because it's chunky and you got all the vegetables and the meat there. And others say, oh, I like it because it's, this or it's that. It's not too hot. It's not too cold. But really, we're all talking about the same thing, and everybody's just really confused. And as long as we're kind of drinking from the same pot of soup, hey, you know what? We're about as good as it's going to get. And that's really where a lot of people get stuck. And they think that that's really like the top of religious thought. And, it can't get any better than that. And it's just not true. It's just not true. So I want to challenge you guys this. If you profess to be a Christian, but you've got a lot of questions, or you're not growing in your faith, and you're kind of looking for an out, you can be honest with yourself with this. You're kind of looking for an out. You kind of don't want to be part of the community that you're involved in, or you don't want to believe the things, or you don't want to practice it the same way everybody practices it. My challenge for you is to dig in. Dig into it. Get serious about it. Here's the thing. Every religion, it doesn't matter which religion you come from, it deserves, if it's asking for your allegiance, if it's asking for you to devote your life to a particular set of beliefs, you owe it to yourself, not only to the religion, but you owe it to yourself to do your homework, to really dig in. Here's something I want to tell you. People who are far more intelligent than I am and have had much more experience with all kinds of religions, they don't come to the conclusion that all religions are just the same or all roads lead to God. They don't buy that kind of stuff. What they come to is that there are some really strong differences between religions, that they're not all the same, that they can't actually logically be the same. But Christianity is the one that I found that stands up to the test. You can logic Christianity to the cows come home. And from what I can tell, from what I found, you're going to find that it holds up. There's something called apologetics. I know that's probably new to some of you guys. You may have heard the term, but you may not be familiar with it. I think that for me, when I was at a place where, so beyond the teenage years, I'd kind of gone back to the church, but that was more for practical reasons. I was getting married, I met my wife. There were some good things about the church that she had me going to, and there were some very legalistic things about it as well. She was Church of Christ, and so we ended up going to Church of Christ before we eventually became non-denominational, and that's kind of where we are now. But like so many guys, I get tired of just the hypocrisy, the bickering in church, the unanswered questions, everybody show up and we all just kind of believe this thing and we all assume that is true. But, really, if you dig into anybody just about in church, they couldn't answer even the most simple questions, right? Why does God allow suffering? Why is there evil in the world? Why did he put a tree in the middle of the garden that you're not supposed to eat from? That's kind of screwed up, right? Why did he create the devil? Why did he allow the devil to come to the earth? Why, is Adam and Eve's story even true, or is it mythology, right? So a lot of these things that were really frustrating for me as a believer, and that other people couldn't answer, I began to take issue with. And I guess I was probably in my 20s when I kind of said, I'm done. I'm done with church. I'm done with organized religion. I don't want to be a part of this anymore. I'd been to too many churches who had broken up. I've seen too many pastors go south, have sexual, affairs and all these different things. And I said, I'm done. If this is the best you can offer, I don't want to be a part of it. And at some point, I discovered apologetics. Apologetics is really just the defense of the Christian faith through reason. And you can actually, because you're using reason and because you're not going to necessarily defend Scripture with Scripture, in a lot of cases, because there's some circular reasoning that can take place there. Not every time, but it can take place, depending on how you're approaching it. The ability to reason through and to logic some things about faith, that you could actually come to a reasonable conclusion that there is actually a God. You could actually come to a reasonable conclusion that many of the worldviews or the religious worldviews don't make sense because they just don't add up logically. I'm not going to go into all this for you guys. I'll give you some resources here in a second. But the fact that you could take this from an intellectual approach, it bolstered my faith tremendously. And I want you guys to experience the same thing. This is why I'm saying dig in. So there are a couple of guys that I would say that you need to know about and to dig into. It's really going to help you along this road. And if you've not done this, if you've not gone down the apologetics route, if you are a logical person, if you're looking for answers, this is going to just blow your mind. And you're going to be surprised that there are people out here who basically do this stuff for a living and have for many, many years. The first one, of course, would be C.S. Lewis. There's a book called Mere Christianity that he wrote. I would say 98% of the book, the Bible isn't even mentioned. And he basically just strips away all of anything that has to do with a particular organized religious kind of viewpoint. And he really just goes through methodically from, is it even reasonable? Not is it provable 100%, but is it reasonable to believe that there's a God? Or at least that we're not here alone. And then he kind of works his way into eventually the principles that Christianity teaches, and you begin to see this stuff kind of come together. And I would suggest reading that book more than once. You're going to see in the other apologist, that is sort of a foundation. Lewis he was a former atheist. He was actually a believer and, believer, practitioner, I guess, to some strong degree in mythology, until he became a Christian. And so he's got this tremendous background of knowledge. And so he just puts things together so well. So Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis, go check that out. There's another guy online that you're going to just be blown away by. His name is Ravi Zacharias, and R-A-V-I and then Zacharias. If you just go to YouTube and you type in Ravi, R-A-V-I space Z, he'll probably come up. He was an atheist as well. At least agnostic, but probably, I think he would call himself an atheist. He's an Indian guy, older guy, probably in his upper 70s to 80s now. But he's been going around speaking and teaching apologetics for many, many years. And he basically went from a bed of suicide to finding Jesus and God and God's love, and really just went on a mission to like, is this really real? Like, is this something that could logically be proven out beyond just, I need a little bit of hope, I need a little bit of faith, I need something that's going to make me feel better. And he's got a great background because even though he was an atheist, he's surrounded by people who believe in deities of all kinds of gods and all kinds of belief systems, because he comes from India. And so he, not only that, but he's got this white hair and he's, dark brown skin. He's got a great accent. So he's awesome to listen to. And, he does a lot of lectures. I mean, just a ton of lectures. He actually has a podcast called Let My People Think. And so he releases a lot of lectures on there, but you can go on YouTube and watch him as well. And you could just sit there and just watch this guy and just let your brain just explode. And here's what I found, guys, is that when your mind becomes convinced, because these guys are throwing out, I mean, they're going to places where people are challenging. Not C.S. Lewis anymore, but because he's dead. But Ravi Zacharias is going to places where he's being challenged by the same kind of questions that you probably have and then some. And he's answering them. And he's answering them competently. And these are the guys that you can go and follow, especially Ravi. And if you start looking kind of in the circle of other people who are like Ravi Zacharias, you're going to find other guys, Norman Geisler and Frank Turek and some others. But you're going to find people that are in the sphere that have different ways of approaching Christianity, a lot of times without even mentioning Christianity. And it's refreshing. When your mind becomes convinced of these things, when you can reason through these things, you gain a certain level of confidence yourself. But also, I think it frees up the heart to believe. And for me, it's really having my mind settled on so many things. Not only has given me that confidence, but it's allowed me to kind of step back and say, okay, my brain is satisfied. Now let my heart have some fun here and really enjoy the heart and the relationship with God and with Christ and with other people. And so, guys, I just want to encourage you in that. Challenge you and encourage you. If you're thinking about stepping away from Christianity, if you've stepped away from it for a while, look, first thing you got to do is recognize more than likely this is a conclusion that you've come to prematurely out of convenience. Most of the guys that I know who have made their way back to Christianity will tell you that. I spent 20 years, I spent 30 years, I spent however long fighting tooth and nail against this thing because I didn't like what it told me I couldn't do. When they finally get old enough that they're not out there on the market anymore, they're not dating anymore, and that their ambitions have become more about their legacy, and they lay down their pride a little bit or a lot, then they come to the conclusion that they really spent a lot of years wasting their life chasing after what they knew really all the time was false. And so they come back to Christianity and they'll tell you it was a convenient lie they believed. A convenient outing. So guys, I want to challenge you on that. I want you to dig in. And if you can be truthful with yourself, or if you can just assume that you're lying to yourself, if you can't be truthful with yourself, assume that you're lying to yourself and that there's a part of you that really just doesn't want to be a part of it because of the things that it prevents you from doing. And then dig into these things. Be open-minded once again. And I think you're going to get a lot from it. You're definitely going to be, if nothing else, you're going to be able to defend your own choices to pursue whatever religious path or non-religious path you're pursuing. You're going to be in a much better place to do that, knowing the things that these guys teach. So once again, it's Mere Christianity and by C.S. Lewis and Ravi Zacharias. And C.S. Lewis has a ton more books out there. I'm just mentioning that one because it's a great place to start. And it's really opened the eyes up for a lot of guys. Okay, fellas, that's all I got today. Take care.